and it is still unfolding. We're talking about 10 families potentially here that are ripped apart. And if you know the Hunter Valley, it's out of the city. It's one of those regional areas that city folk always do visit. This was after a wedding, which makes the contrast just all the more tragic. But when these types of things occur in a small town or a small area or area outside the city, David, it tends to hit so much harder.
Oh, it does. I mean, these communities are small, and so invariably there'll be someone that they know in there, even though there's a lot of tourists. These communities are interconnected from the wineries right through to the bus companies themselves, and you've got to understand there'll be a lot of lives shattered out of this. And I went through this just before Christmas with the tragedy at Williambilla, where our innocence was shattered with the horrific actions of a few. You've got to understand small country towns and small regional communities bear the brunt of this because invariably there is that emotional connection of knowing somebody, and it's important that we understand that they'll be hurting as well. And you can see from your footage even today that those communities are shocked and horrified about what's happened, trying to understand, and we may never understand the full extent of why this has happened. It's one that I think we need to appreciate that there's a lot of hurt out there, and just as a nation, we understand that we've got to make sure we support those families that have been impacted today. From what was a joyous event to what is a tragic event, all within a matter of hours, just reinforces the fragility of life.
Yeah, and the way we all respond to these circumstances, you feel so desperately useless at a time like this, to be honest. All the thoughts and prayers we send these families' ways, but that doesn't really do much at all. As you sit there in Canberra, is there anything the federal government can do, or the federal opposition, or any of us at this point?
Look, I think it's about being there in emotional support. I think we should be proud of our state agencies and the way that they're able to respond to our emergencies and to the professionalism of the men and women that do it. I think while we might sit there and reflect on some emergencies of broader scale that we haven't exactly done perfectly, I think when you get to these events, our emergency service personnel are the best in the world. And that's not just from being there in the hour of need, but that's post it. And you've got to understand that they will be liaison officers that will be assigned to these families to help them work through their grief and the long process that covers. But that's why no matter what words we can say today, there'll be no comfort that any political leader can provide these families. But just the knowledge in knowing that this is something that has touched the heartstrings of every Australian, that every Australian will be feeling this today, that this is just something, one of those incidents that can turn from what is a joyous event to tragedy in just a matter of minutes. And that's what you have to understand, is that there is a fragility to life, and we just need to understand that this will be something very difficult for those families and these communities and the first responders process for some time to come. And we need to make sure that we never forget that. We keep coming back to ensure that they are okay and we help them work through that grief process.
Yeah, really well said. It is really hard to wrap your head around this morning. And David Littleproud, I know there's a lot going on in Canberra, but all those issues seem to pale in comparison this morning. So we'll leave it there. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.